Welcome to Thriving Moms of Autistics podcast, a free resource for moms raising young autistic children. I am your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. I created Thriving Moms of Autistics after years of experience working with families and having my own autistic child. I coach moms of young autistics one-on-one to tap into their strengths, create a supportive community, set firm boundaries, and raise their autistic child with confidence. Subscribe to the podcast and check out the earlier episodes so you don't miss a thing. Now, let's get to it.
Hi, moms. There will always be others who either don't understand autism because they just lack the experience or are just not willing to learn. And human nature supports that this is always going to be an issue. It can push our buttons and it can cause our children distress. So in this episode, I will share some practical self-care tips for you, as well as effective strategies for setting boundaries with other adults. So by the end of this discussion, you will feel more empowered to handle these challenging situations with confidence and grace. Together, let's create a more supportive environment for both you and your amazing children. So find the full transcript for this episode at thrivingmomsofautistics.com/97. Please share the podcast with other moms to help them grow in their autism journey. And you can also do this by leaving an Apple Podcast review. And you can subscribe to the Thriving Moms of Autistics YouTube channel. I appreciate you. So, why are others not open to understanding autism and willing to support our family? Well, whether if you're in a grocery store, park, a holiday gathering, a birthday party, you're going to encounter judgment. And this can even happen in your own home, unfortunately. There are times when others simply don't have that experience or the information that they need to understand. So, but they are willing to listen and learn. There are many people like that I have found. Then, of course, there's those who aren't interested in learning more and supporting families in the autism community. They're just not, and they're out there. And this could be a sign of low emotional intelligence. And you'll notice this in people who argue a lot. They want to argue about everything. They tend to blame others. And generally have poor coping skills because they just refuse to listen. So it's important to remember that you have no power over them. They are on their own journey in life. Your journey is very different from theirs. You only have control over your thoughts and your behaviors, which will ultimately impact your journey. So that's really important to remember. You only have control over your own thoughts and behaviors, and that is going to impact your journey in the end. So that means that you can either choose to get hung up or on what they've said or what they've done, or you could choose to move forward and grow in spite of them. You don't just move on with the snap of your finger. That just doesn't happen. You have to work at it a bit. And the more that you do this, the less time it takes to move on. Notice that it gets shorter and shorter in time because it becomes second nature. We all have different personalities, which are derived from a combination of the traits that we're born with, and with the beliefs, experiences that we have learned over the years. So these are things to keep in mind when we're dealing with others. Let's talk about setting boundaries with others and how it is a form of self-care for moms of autistic. Now, moms raising autistics are often the most neglected person in the household. They focus on supporting their children, their spouse or significant other, handling the day to day of the household, and making sure that their autistic child is safe and has all their needs. So, this is a daily thing, right? Now, on top of everything else, they are met with opposition when others don't get autism. And like I said, this can happen anywhere. This can happen in a school. This can happen in your place of worship. It can happen on the street. It can happen in the grocery store. It's everywhere. It is easy to let loose and put others in their place. So it feels good for like a moment, right? And then it doesn't. However, it often causes more distress and shame when we realize that someone didn't mean harm and was coming from a place of ignorance. Or even if it is somebody who's just being nasty and resistant to understanding, you still recognize that maybe you could handle that differently. And um, yeah, so those feelings often occur from that as well. And we've all been there. Okay. All of us have been there, haven't we? I found that I save myself a lot of embarrassment when I dive a little deeper to find out where they're coming from. And setting boundaries helps me to educate them on what works best for our family and why. So they can either take it or leave it. That is entirely up to them. So it is a way to avoid compounding the issue, but it's also important for your personal self-care because once it escalates, it impacts you and your child. And it also teaches your child how to handle situation. So that's another thing to consider. So here are some strategies that will help moms of autistics to set healthy boundaries. Okay. And boundaries are not all the same. Some are healthy while others are not. So firm boundaries are composed of certain elements. And healthy boundaries are, number one, firm. So this means that they are consistent. You know what works for you and your family. So the boundary you set is one that remains consistent along the way. So it's not changing. It's not, well, maybe this or maybe that. It's a firm boundary. And it's also clear. This means that you communicate the expectations in a way that others understand. So meeting people where they're at, giving them that information so that it's clear to them. There is no confusion. And sometimes moms set boundaries in a roundabout way to avoid confrontation. And that ends up leading to more issues. And also, you want to set healthy boundaries as a priority. Your child is a priority, and making and setting those boundaries is just a no-brainer. So we support and protect our children because we love them. And their well-being and our well-being matters. So setting healthy boundaries will improve your self-care, your mental health, physical health, overall well-being, life balance, and decrease the burnout and discord others. Did I mention that you deserve it? So I hope this helps, and I look forward to our time together next week.
Thanks for listening to Thriving Moms of Autistics podcast. Be sure to leave a review and tell other moms of autistics about the podcast. Let's support each other. Find the full transcript for this episode at thrivingmomsofautistics.com. And be assured, you are not alone in your journey.